I'm here to tell you a little bit about the sleep wearable study. I'm very interested in sleep, and I'm particularly interested in the link between a condition called RBD, Parkinson's, and sleep. So what's RBD? RBD is a condition where when you're dreaming in REM sleep, the normal switch that stops your body from moving is broken. So it means that you start moving or maybe shouting. Mild cases, it can just be a little bit of movement, maybe some muttering. Severe cases can involve harming your bed partner, falling out of bed, screaming and shouting. It can be quite a severe condition. We know that people who've been diagnosed with RBD are at significantly higher risk of developing Parkinson's disease. I'm sorry, I'm getting feed. Am I able to turn? Is that better? Yeah. So we know that people who've been diagnosed with RBD are at significantly higher risk of developing Parkinson's, so we know there's some link there. And we also know that people who have Parkinson's often report they have symptoms that sound a bit like RBD. They report sometimes that they talk in their sleep and that maybe they're doing some movements. So we know that there's a link, but we don't really understand anything about what that link is. And that's partly because of one of the big challenges is of diagnosing RBD accurately. So to diagnose RBD, what you need to have currently is a sleep study in hospital. And that's both expensive and takes quite a long time to organise. So if I went to my GP saying I had symptoms of RBD, the GP would first of all have to see if they're serious enough to warrant further investigation. So let's say I've fallen out of bed or hurt my partner in bed, then maybe they can refer me to a consultant. That consultant would then have to refer me for a sleep study. That might be 6 months waiting list at least. You then go into hospital overnight. You would then have somebody for several hours attaching equipment to you. You'd spend a night in hospital, unlikely to get a very good night's sleep, so not necessarily representative of your sleep normally. It then takes a sleep physiologist about 8 hours to manually go through all the recordings that have been made to understand your sleep, and that report will get sent back to the consultant to actually diagnose your condition. And then you'll get called in and have an appointment. So from you going to your GP saying, I've got these symptoms and they're really affecting my life, it could take easily a year for you to actually get a formal diagnosis. So that it's not very satisfactory, particularly if we know that people who have RBD are at risk of developing Parkinson's, and possibly if we could get them on drugs quickly, it might delay the onset, or it might mean their Parkinson's doesn't get as severe as quickly. So there's a real interest in getting a better idea about sleep. And so what we're doing is trialling a new sleep device, which is what I'm wearing. And what we're hoping is that this kit can be worn at home by people, allowing many more people to have sleep studies. And what we're also looking at is being able to automate the analysis of the data so that a computer can give an instant feedback as to what the readings show, rather than having to manually go through it. So I just talk you through what I'm wearing. On my leg here, I have, and you're welcome to come and see it later. I'm sorry for people at the back. On my leg, I have a little monitor here that will capture any leg movement. So if I'm moving my legs in my sleep, we'll know about it. On my chin, I have one that will be capturing if I'm talking or moving my jaw, grinding my teeth. It'll be picking that up. So with those two, we can pretty accurately guess if you've got RBD or not. Here, I've got, this is like the little computer. So this will be picking up all of the recordings and saving it overnight. This will be monitoring my chest effort. So it'll be how deeply I'm breathing, how frequently I'm breathing. I've got heart monitors here, and one down here, which I'm not going to show you. So this is monitoring my heart, so we'll know exactly if I've got any abnormal heartbeats, how fast my heart is beating. On my finger, I have a little oxygen meter, so this is making sure that my blood is fully saturated with oxygen. And because this is also doing my heartbeat, because we can then see the difference in time between my heartbeat here by my heart and in my finger, we can actually also tell your blood pressure. So we can do real-time monitoring of your blood pressure all night long. Then on my head, we have these ones around my eyes. These ones will allow us to know which way your eyes are moving in your sleep. So if you're dreaming, your eyes move. And so we know when you're sleeping if you're dreaming or not. And finally, this one up on my head is monitoring my brain's electrical activity. So we can also tell what's happening to your brain in your sleep. And then this one behind my ear is a baseline. So this is for us to know what the baseline activity is. So this kit allows us to know an awful lot about what's going on with you when you're sleeping. This is a brand new study. We have so far recruited 2 people. One of the reasons that I'm so keen to be here today is because I'm really hoping, sitting in the room right here, are some future potential recruits. The study is running until 2023. We're hoping to follow people up every 6 months. Phase 1 of the study will be recruiting about 150 people. Now, 100 or so of those are people who are being referred for NHS sleep studies. So unless you're in the process of being referred by a doctor, you won't be able to take part in that. That's for us to see people who are having NHS sleep studies, and we're going to compare our equipment to the NHS one. But we also need to find 50 people who are healthy controls, who have no diagnosed sleep problems, who consider themselves to have good sleep, to take part in phase 1. And what that would involve is having the NHS kit and our kit put on at the same time and going home and sleeping for the night, and us being able to compare our data to the NHS kit data. Because the first thing we need to do is see, are we as good as the gold standard? Can this kit work as well as the NHS? We're pretty confident that it can, so we already are planning and looking towards phase 2, which is where we're going to be rolling this kit out to have people with RBD and Parkinson's, and again some healthy controls, to take this home and wear it overnight. We're hoping to recruit up to 450 people, and we're recruiting from Oxford, Papworth, which is near Cambridge, and up in Sheffield. So if anyone here has RBD, or if you're a healthy control and be interested in taking part in the next couple of months, or if you have PD, please come and speak to me. We have participant information sheets, we have expression of interest forms. If you're interested in taking part, I would love to speak to you. All right, and now I'm going to hand over to my colleague Christine, who's going to tell you a bit more about the smartphones which we're using.
Great, thank you for that. So as part of the wearable work, we've also been working with smartphones. So I'm just going to give you a bit of an update about where we're at with that. I'll start by talking about why we're interested in using smartphones, how we've been using them in discovery, what we can do with them at the moment, who we have to thank for what we can do, and where things are heading. So it may not sound like much, but one of the key challenges in Parkinson's research is actually knowing how to measure how someone responds to treatment and how someone's Parkinson's is changing over time. The reason for this is that at the moment it relies on people having their symptoms rated by clinicians, so human doctors and human nurses. So what someone might consider to be perhaps a mild problem with walking, another person might consider to be a moderate problem with walking, and so different scores can be assigned to the same person with Parkinson's. Now, we know that if you take a group of different doctors and nurses rating the same person with Parkinson's, their scores can, on average, differ between 1.7 and 5.4 points. Now, to put that into context, for drug trials that are trying to find drugs that will actually slow down Parkinson's or stop people from getting Parkinson's to begin with, the difference that they're looking for is a 3-point difference in the scale. And so that's a 3-point difference between people taking the drug and people not taking the drug. And you can see how that elusive 3-point difference can somewhat be diluted by the differences that occur just because of different raters rating the same people with Parkinson's. So wearable motion sensors and smartphones both contain motion sensors that are capable of measuring movement, measuring acceleration, which is the way things speed up and slow down, and angular velocity, which is the way things spin. Now, whilst wearable motion sensor systems can cost several £1,000s, smartphones are fairly commonplace and most people own one. Smartphones are also capable of recording voice, so they can use a microphone to do so, and also screen data, which allows us to measure things like reaction time and finger tapping. So if you've been in discovery, you'll be aware that since 2014, we've been inviting people to take part in smartphone tests that assess 7 different tasks, including voice, balance, walking, finger tapping, reaction time, rest tremor, and postural tremor. And those tasks take around 7 minutes to complete. From those 7 tasks, we can then use fancy statistical methods to extract 1,000 measures, just under, and from those, we can feed those into machine learning algorithms using artificial intelligence to then make predictions. So we're now at a point where we can report on the early use of smartphones to help in the diagnosis, monitoring, and also prediction of outcomes in Parkinson's. So in work that's led by Siddharth Arora, who's a statistician, we've shown that it's possible just to use the smartphone tests alone to tell apart people with RBD from controls with around 92% accuracy, people with Parkinson's from controls with 85% accuracy, and people with Parkinson's from those with RBD with 88% accuracy. We've also used smartphones to measure Parkinson's, and we can do so predicting the clinical rating score that's used in drug trials to within an accuracy of 2.2 points, which is within the range of human raters of 1.7 to 5.4 points. And furthermore, we've used smartphones to make predictions that clinicians might otherwise struggle to do. For example, we can predict who goes from not falling at the point of doing their smartphone test to falling 18 months later with an accuracy of around 87%. And we can also predict who is likely to go on to develop problems doing the things they like to do, like hobbies, in 18 months' time with an accuracy of around 86%. The only reason we can do all of these things and we can explore the use of smartphones to diagnose, measure, and predict outcomes in Parkinson's is because of the time that participants in Discovery have given up to help us with these detailed assessments, both in clinic and at home. So thank you. To become more certain about the predictions that the smartphones are making, it's important that we continue to collect data over time. And so to try and help with that, we're actually working with a computer app design team to improve the app and to make it more usable, with the plan of having a new version released in the next few months. So that was just a quick update on the smartphones and what we can do with that. I'm not entirely sure if we've got room for questions, but Claire and I can answer any questions both on the smartphones and the sleep wearable study that you've just heard of.
So I'd just like to ask Claire to come up and just perhaps 2 questions now, and then we can also carry on to the last session of the day. Yes? Are they available now?
Sorry, are they available now?
Are we talking available? Is that relating to the
Smartphone.
Oh yeah, so we're using the smartphones at the moment in the research clinics in Discovery to measure those 7 different tasks.
And we also have prototype phones with a prototype of the new app. It's not working yet, but we have a prototype beta version of the app on some phones outside if anyone's interested in seeing what the app will look like.
Oh, I see. So I couldn't pick one up and walk out with it.
No. So the app is available at the moment on a research basis, but we do want in the longer term to make it available to benefit the much wider community of people with Parkinson's and the doctors and nurses looking after them. But at the moment we need to get more data in before we can release a version that will then make meaningful conclusions and feed back to you. So that's a little way of time off. Few years at least really of work before we have that, but that is definitely the long-term aim, and it will be made available on a non-for-profit basis. Yes.
Would that be an app rather than a smartphone?
Yeah. So it's an app on a smartphone. Currently, the way we're trying to standardize the data collection to make it as vigorous as possible is by pre-installing the app on a certain model of smartphone. But in the future, there's no particular reason why it can't be installed on any compatible operating system like Android, for example.